Hello, I'm Jamie with Stonemaier Games, and this is my weekly live cast about Stonemaier Games to answer your questions and discuss some random topics. And I have a lot of random topics this week, many of them gaming related. But for a non-convention week, I actually played a lot of games over the last week. Before I get started on that, though, I wanted to mention my chocolate of the day and of the week. And this is something I picked up at Whole Foods yesterday. I've never seen this before. Wild Ophelia cold brew chocolate. I got the dark chocolate coffee bite. I don't drink coffee, but I like coffee in things. I like the coffee flavor. And so I tried one of these yesterday, really liked it. I'm going to have one after this live cast. So I'm curious if you have a favorite. What's your chocolate of the day? Or if you have a favorite coffee flavored treat that is not actually drinking coffee. I'd love to hear it. I love trying stuff like that. So yeah, like I mentioned a second ago, I've played a lot of games over the last week, an unusually high number of games. Usually I play games like twice a week. And so I'll go through these real quick to let you know what I've been playing, in case you have any thoughts or comments on them. At game night last week, I played Downforce, Just One, and Scotland Yard. I played as Mr. X for Scotland Yard and lost pretty miserably. I got like 2/3 of the way through the game, but the detectives caught up with me. On Thursday, I played Lanterns Dice, which I did a video about the next day, and Trade on the Tigress, my second play of that. Again, I had a really fun time with that. Lots of decks of cards to deal with, but and a lot of kind of information to manage around the table. But the live trading, I really, really like the live real-time trading aspect of Trade on the Tigress. And then on Friday, I'll take a break and answer questions in a second. But on Friday, I got to play Viticulture. I taught Viticulture with my girlfriend. I haven't gotten to say that on camera yet, but my girlfriend Megan, and then two visitors from out of town, two people I had met Suzanne once. Suzanne and her husband Derek, who are bloggers. They're reviewers of games in general. They had never played Viticulture, so I got to teach them Viticulture here in my my home office here. I'll talk about some more games in a minute, but let me look and see what you are saying today, or if you have any thoughts about those games that I just mentioned. Charles mentioned coffee crisps. I think is that the Canadian treat that you've mentioned before, Charles? The coffee crisps. Mike says that he's going to the Salt Lake Gaming Convention this week to teach Wingspan and My Little Scythe. That's pretty cool. I've heard there's a convention in Reno this weekend too, or this week and weekends, and I have two friends from St. Louis who are attending it. So if you're going to be at that Reno convention, let me know, and look out for Lindsay and Joe there. Chris asked if this coffee treat has caffeine in it. I'm guessing it does. I don't know offhand by looking at this packaging. I don't know. I'm guessing it does though. Just scrolling through looking at chocolate recommendations here, which I always love. Charles Waterman says, a couple Charleses here today. Charles says, do I think Trade on the Tigress will work as a way? Do I think Trade on the Tigress will work as a way to try to? And Charles, I think you got cut off there, so I don't know the end of your question, but it does work as far as I can tell. Shakid says, I'm not married. No, I've never been married. I've been single for almost my entire. Almost the entire time that I've run my game company here, Stonemaier Games. So this is a new area for me to explore. Okay, Connor's continuing his legacy question of that started a couple weeks ago, I think. This is I believe, if I can give some backstory here, I think in Connor's hypothetical questions, I'm traveling abroad. He's gotten me to travel abroad in these questions. I have lost my wallet, my phone. I don't speak the local language. I'm tired. I haven't slept. And here's Connor's question. He says, your search to find accommodations goes nowhere, and you end up back at the restaurant. The owners see it's late and you're tired and mime, because we don't speak the language, we don't share a common language, that I'm welcome to stay with them. Their home is a single room attached to the restaurant. They make multiple offers for you to please take the single bed and plan to sleep on the floor themselves. What do you do? You know, that's an interesting question. I think I've learned that when people make a genuine offer like that, that it's almost that as awkward as it can be, I think they sometimes genuinely want you to take that offer. So I would take them up on it. I would sense that it's genuine, and I would do it. Since it seems to be what they want. Nadir says, is there any theme that I haven't yet used that you could see yourself using in a design? There are a few for sure. One that I mentioned out loud a few times is the idea of time travel. I love the idea of time travel in games, as you can tell from my love from time stories. But it's a theme that, as much as I'm interested in it, I actually have not explored too many games that already exist that use time travel. I think I have played Anachrony, which has time travel, and that might be it. So I need to play some others first before deciding if I want to explore that theme in a game. I don't have any games with that theme in the works. Chris said that he taught My Little Side this past weekend. Chris, thanks for doing that. Mike says RageCon is the one in Reno. He says that he went to that one last year, and it's a lot of fun. George says, how's the indoor climbing going? Yeah, so this is one of the random topics I had today. I went indoor rock climbing again this past weekend, and it's been a lot of fun. As someone, I think I mentioned this in a blog entry recently, because I did actually, my Monday blog entry this week was about things that I'm learning from indoor rock climbing that I'm seeing a direct connection to running a business and designing games and being a creator. But I'm really enjoying it so far. I love the puzzle solving aspect of it. I love the physical aspect of it, and I can feel myself getting better each time. I'm sure I'll have some frustrating outings where I want to do things that I can't physically do or can't mentally wrap my mind around. I had some things like that happen this past week, but I see it almost as a game where I lost the game and I want to go back and play again because I lost and I want that challenge again. And so that happened on a few routes this past week, or on Sunday when I went. So I'm eager to go back and try again. Some of the other games, so that was kind of a game that I played. After that, I played Beat Saber a few times, which I continue to be terrible at, but I'm having a lot of fun with. And then on Saturday, this was a big thing for Stonemaier. On Saturday, actually I have even more games to talk about that I just remembered. On Saturday, we co-hosted the Wingspan event with the local Audubon Center. It was supposed to be at the Audubon Center itself, which is a beautiful location. People were really excited about that. People came from out of town to be part of this event. But unfortunately, due to flooding in St. Louis, we weren't able to have it there, and instead we had it at a local brewery called the Old Bakery Brewery in Alton, which was an awesome space. They have a huge space there, and so we had plenty of space for 11 tables of Wingspan. And all the proceeds went to the Audubon Center, and some people also walked away with copies of Wingspan, which I think they were hoping to get. And they all learned how to play. Some people already knew. I met some wonderful people there, a number of gamers, but also some birders who were just curious about the game and wanted to learn how to play. And we had some great volunteers there too, who offered their time and their Saturday evenings to give it a try. So I'd recommend all of those things basically that I just said. Well, in particular, Audubon Center, if you get the chance to go to the Audubon Center in St. Louis or the local one near you, I actually thought it was really cool when I went there. I'm not a birder, but I had a really neat time there. And the Old Baker Brewery, they let us use their space for free. And so if you're ever in Alton or the Alton area, I would highly recommend checking it out. The blueberry beer I had was really, really good. And I've heard there's some other really good beers. There's a porter on tap that I heard great things about. So highly recommend checking that out. And it was a great event. We don't do many events at Stonemaier Games, so it was a nice change of pace and really neat to do. Gerald says, you said in an old procrastinating blog post that not having a girlfriend helps me stay focused on game design. How does Megan feel about this? How did I meet her? Did I give away Megan's name? I don't know how you caught that, Gerald. I don't know if I said Megan's name. Now, did I say it out loud? I don't think I realized that. Maybe I did. I'll have to go back and read that entry to see how what I was thinking about procrastinating. I can't remember that connection to procrastinating. So I'll have to go back and read that blog entry. I can't remember that. I'll make a note about that. Suzanne is here. Suzanne is one of the people that I played games with on Saturday. Suzanne, thank you for dropping by and playing games with us on Friday and then on Saturday at the event. Procrastination. Okay, Charles is back with the full question. Do I think trade on the Tigris will work as a way to get Japanese EFL students to speak English more actively? Charles, that's a good question. I appreciate your mission. It's a game that requires trading, and so you really do have to talk in the game, but it's so chaotic, it may be a little overwhelming. I would almost recommend, I would try to think of some cooperative games that that help in that area. And maybe some cooperative games that limit you a little bit in terms of how many words you have to say. When I Dream comes to mind. It's not fully cooperative, but When I Dream is a game where you're only giving one-word clues, and that could be a place to start, Charles, because it's a lot simpler. You are forced to engage in When I Dream, but you're not forced to construct full sentences. So it's maybe a nice starting point before you go into something much more chaotic like Trade on the Tigris. Kent says, are there any current Kickstarters I'm interested in? And Kent, yeah, this is one of the things I want to talk about today, because there were so many big projects that launched yesterday, big and small projects. And it was almost overwhelming to see how many quality projects launched yesterday. I won't go into all of them, but I will say the one that I backed, and this isn't a slight to any of the other projects. I really don't mean it that way. I can't back everything, and I'm fairly selective about what I back because of my limited shelf space and how I pursue games in general. But the one that I backed was Isle of Cats, as many of you could probably guess. I love that style of game, and I love cats, and I heard great things about it. So I did back Isle of Cats yesterday, Kent. What did you all back? I don't know if you were paying attention to Kickstarter yesterday, but there were a ton of gaming projects that launched yesterday. So I'm curious to see what other people pursued. There are definitely some that I'm following. Legends of Novus I'm following. I'm following the role player expansion. I'm following the Elder Vale project from Luke Laurie. Luke had a really interesting session on the Board Game Design Lab podcast, I think last week. That is definitely worth listening to. He really knows his stuff, and it definitely made me even more interested in Elder Vale. But yeah, Eli says, how does Trade on the Tigris compare to Sidereal Confluence? I would say it's fairly similar. Oh, I would say that the most direct parallel is to Millennium Blades, because Millennium Blades has this, well, they all have a very real-time trading session, similar to Chinatown too. I'd lump all those games into the same category of having specific real-time categories, some of which are timed. I think most of those are timed. Maybe Chinatown is the one that isn't timed, but the other ones do have a specific period of time that trading is allowed. And Eli, the games are fairly similar. In fact, Sidereal Confluence is another one where you do have a lot to pay attention to in front of you and around the table, similar to Trade on the Tigris. Sidereal Confluence is more about building an engine, whereas Trade on the Tigris, even though you're gaining income, it doesn't have that same engine building feel to it. But it's still a lot of fun. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing at all, just a different feel. Chris says, my blog on being single was well done and a good read. Which blog entry was that, Chris? I did write a blog entry related to relationships recently, but I don't remember the one about being single. Which one are you referencing there? Let's see. Sean says he recently got his nephew into board games and have taught him Scythe. One of the reasons I think he was so into it is because Scythe is so visually impressive and gigantic. Can I recommend a game that can keep his interest? Preferably some sort of battle game with impressive visuals. Yeah, Sean, I would say one of my favorites in that category and one that inspired Scythe is a game called Kemet. It's Kemet. Highly recommend it. Great miniatures in it, especially the big monster miniatures in particular. And if he enjoys Scythe, I think he would definitely enjoy Kemet. And Kemet is even more battle-oriented than Scythe. Scythe isn't all that battle-oriented. Charles says, am I still enjoying Just One? Yep, it's definitely on my list for top 10 of the year, and it has a chance of even jumping into my top 10 ever. It's awesome. Really, really awesome. And yeah, we keep enjoying it. I don't know. I can't necessarily, I've only been playing it for like 4 months, so I can't necessarily say that it will be a long-term game for me, but I'm really enjoying it so far. Kevin says he's teaching Wingspan tonight. Any key tips for a first-time teacher of it? I do have a video about teaching Wingspan. If you search Google for how to teach Wingspan, Kevin, you can probably see me talking about it. But the main thing that I do is that I I get players to start taking turns right off the bat, and I explain some core things like the idea of what you're doing in the game, but I don't tell them much at all, because like the first decision in the game that they have to make is which birds to keep and which food to keep, and I basically kind of just steer them towards saying, for that first game, pick some food that lets you play a bird, and show them where on the bird cards the food cost is. And then on a player's first turn, I basically just encourage everyone to play a bird, and then I show them how to do that, and then I show them how to take another action, and then another action. We all kind of pretty much take the same actions for the first few turns until they get the hang of it and understand how the actions work. And then as we get closer to the end of the round, I talk about the end round goal, and then I have them look at their bonus cards. So I really unravel it as we play that first round, step by step, so that they can just start doing things right away. There really is not a lot of information that you need to know before taking your first turn in Wingspan. And thank you for teaching it. Shakid says, hopefully I don't miss a question here. Yeah, here we go. The guys putting out Seventh Continent are being criticized for not wanting to print any more copies of the game. They said they are done with it and want to concentrate on their new game. What do I think about this? Actually, I just read their latest update about it, and I interpreted it a little bit differently. My sense from it is that they're done with the world of the Seventh Continent, but that they are actually, for the first time, deciding that they are going to print a retail version of it. So they're going to continue to support the game and put it out there for more people to explore and discover through a slimmed down retail game, which I thought was pretty cool of them to consider. And then you're right. They did say that they're going to stop making content for the Seventh Continent and want to make content for their new game, the Seventh Citadel. And I fully support it. I mean, I think it's similar to what I did with Scythe. They did it a little bit earlier than what I did with Scythe, but I admire them for saying that they want to focus their creative energy on something that they're really excited about. And they're probably not even completely closing the door to the Seventh Continent. They might return to it someday. They might support fans who create new scenarios and mysteries. But it's a huge world. I think people can spend many, many hours on Seventh Continent and not run out of content. So I kind of feel bad for them that they're getting criticism for that. Chris says, when am I planning on taking the rock climbing outdoors? I have no plans to do that. That would be pretty intense. I'm just getting the hang of indoor rock climbing right now. Kevin says, how many iteration cycles do I typically go through prior to bringing a new game idea into play testing? So before that first play test, how many iteration cycles do I typically go through? A fair number. I take longer, I think, than some designers to actually get a game to the table for the first time, because I'm pretty cerebral about how I do it. I really like that brainstorming process. I think part of it I just enjoy it. I enjoy the pencil and paper brainstorming process. And so I typically go through quite a few iterations before that first play test. And then after that, it's pretty rapid. I play test, I make changes, I play test, I make changes. Sometimes I'll take a little break and come back. But yeah, I'd say quite a few. I don't know the exact number, but quite a few. Let me see if I have any. I've been actually had a lot of time for design work recently, so I won't say what I'm working on, but I've had a lot of time to work on a game that requires a lot of design attention. And I've been playtesting some games. One that I've kind of hidden back there on the table, blocked by the Crusoe crew, which I'm hoping to play tonight. I've been playtesting some games from other designers that we are publishing, and they've been going pretty well. I've been acting as a developer on those games. I've been having a good time with them. Oh, and I did play a few other new games. My friends Miles and Jesse and their daughter Leona dropped by to play Peat Mott's, another bird-themed game, and Blue Lagoon, and I taught them the Hare and the Tortoise. Blue Lagoon and Peat Mott's were new to me, and they were both really interesting. The Blue Lagoon was like Terra Mystica, very stripped of all engine building and just area control like things and connecting routes in Blue Lagoon. And Peat Mott's was another bird-themed game, which has been intriguing to me lately. Very, very tight game. Very tight game. Hard to make moves in Peat Mott's, but very satisfying when you pull them off. I have other random topics. Let me see if I have questions. I can come back to my random topics. Let's see. Tony says, that he plays Star Wars Outer Rim last night. He really loved the game, and it captures the Star Wars flavor well. However, we played a 4-player game for nearly 4 hours and only got halfway to someone achieving the basic 8 points needed for a winner. I know I've expressed that I don't like lengthy games, games over 3 hours. That's kind of my threshold. Are there any games that are long that I will endure or that I will agree to play at a lower player count to help speed things up? I'll play most games once. Even if they're a longer game. So like I've played Twilight Imperium 4th edition once. I've played Eclipse once. I've played the Game of Thrones game once. It's pretty rare that I'll want to return to them though. I kind of like that experience, that epic experience, but maybe not a repeated play. At a lower player count, if it is possible to play it at a lower player count and have a very satisfying game, maybe. I'm trying to think of any games that I play on like a semi-regular basis that I don't play at higher player counts because they last too long. I can't think of any offhand. I'm sure there are some, Tony. If I think of one, I'll let you know. Yeah, I don't see any in my collection right now that fit that category. Connor continues his legacy question. He says, my decision makes the couple happy and me comfortable. I have a restful night of sleep with minimum sleep talking, and in the morning, I'm already awake and they're already awake and I made me some breakfast. After eating, I head on out into the heat, which is already high for so early in the morning. What do I do? Well, I've encountered a number of problems here. I believe the embassy wasn't open before, so I'd like to go to the embassy and recover, try to find a cell phone and try to get my ID back. Yeah, I'd do some practical stuff, I think. Cameron says, any news on when more details about Sand will be announced? Will be announced. It's one of the code names of our games. And no, I don't have any news about that yet. It'll be a little while before I have news about that. Joseph says, I know I'm not much of a video gamer, but I'm curious to know what is my favorite video game. I'd probably say the classic Mario Kart. I do play Magic online every now and then, so it is technically a digital game, but it's I don't know if I'll count board game ports in that category. But Mario Kart is just one of my favorite games of all time. Mario Kart 64 in particular. Tom says, I got to play Gaia Project this weekend for the first time at our local game store. He says he thinks knowing Terra Mystica really helped. I was shocked at how the change in theme really made it sing for me, and some of the mechanism changes helped it make more sense. It's the first time I've played a large game and turned around and bought it on the spot. Have I ever played a game that I enjoyed so much that I had to buy it right away? Definitely yes. I don't know if I can think of that question offhand. Let me see if any of them on my shelf apply to that. A game that so Isle of Sky is up there. I remember playing that at Geekway. I don't even know if I bought it right away, but it was very soon after playing it at Geekway. I was like, this is up my alley. Let's see. Any other games up there that I bought right away after playing the first time? I actually don't know. A lot of the games I bought are either Kickstarter games or they are games that I read a lot of reviews about and played for the first time after I already owned them. Okay. Gerald says, can I talk about predicting a game's long tail after its first print run? I'm still learning about that myself. I am still working on figuring out how to forecast demand for the future for games. It's interesting. Even as we have more information about games, it's hard to tell, and the risk changes. Like as more people know about the game, more people might want it, but also as more people own the game, there are a few people who might buy it. So it's always difficult. Also, I don't know. There's just so many factors that go into it. How will it continue to be reviewed? Does it matter if you continue to support it or not, or are you just catering to people who already own it? So I'm still trying to figure it out, honestly. I try to look for patterns with my distribution broker to see, like, if we have a game in stock, how long does it take to sell out of it? So it actually does really help. If we have a game that doesn't sell out instantly, we have a few games that do and a few that don't. it's for those that don't, it's nice to see those trends of, okay, if we have 5,000 copies this month, and then next month we have 4,500 copies, and then this next month we drop down to 3,500, what happened there? And the next month maybe we still have 3,400 in stock. Like, what happened there? So it's trying to follow those patterns over time to see how many to make for the next print run, or if we should make any at all, or give it a little break. You may have heard that my AC is finally working again. It was replaced last Thursday. So I went a full month without any air conditioning in late spring in St. Louis, almost summer, not quite summer. But we made it. All the cats made it. And Walter's on the floor down here next to me. And we got AC again. So it's been really nice to have that back. Also, I've really been enjoying the Women's World Cup. Obviously, I'm excited about the U.S. women, who are now going up against all 7 European countries. It's one non-European country, and then the rest are European. So it's U.S. versus Europe right now in the World Cup. And I'm loving watching the U.S. women play. I love watching the other teams play as well, because I just love soccer in general. But I'm super excited to have a U.S. team doing well in a soccer tournament. Let's see. Chad says, I just played Outer Rim solo to learn a game so I can teach it to others at game night. Have I done this? I have. Normally I don't do that. I do see value in doing that, to play through a game solo. And that way you get to play a game instead of just kind of reading through the rules. But usually if I learn a game, it's a combination of unpacking the game, like punching and whatnot, and just reading through the rule book and going through the examples and kind of going through examples in my head of, okay, how is this going to work when I play for the first time? I'm way behind on comments here. I'll try to catch up. Marco says, when will I start to release information about my Civilization game? Well, Marco, I've talked about my Civilization game a fair amount in videos over time, just like little hints here and there. And so that's all the information I've released so far. And then at some point in the future, I'll be talking about more information about it. Daniel says, with more games coming out each year, do I think publishers will make changes to game life cycles or try different strategies? That's an interesting question. Yeah, so like maybe for existing games, will more publishers make a game go out of print for a little while? Maybe gauge interest to see if they wanted to have it go back in print. I think some publishers already do that, and it's an interesting strategy. It's not something that I've really pursued other than with Charterstone, and still kind of feeling out if I want to put Charterstone back out there in print or if I will just rely on the digital version. I'm not quite sure yet. It's a very expensive game to make. But yeah, Daniel, I think that's an interesting question. I think we will see publishers be selective about their budgets. We all have limited budgets, especially for reprints. I think publishers will continue to use Kickstarter for that first print run, but for reprints, you got to have the cash flow to actually afford it, to afford to make that print run. So for publishers that have dozens and dozens of games, maybe even hundreds of games, they need to make key cash flow decisions at different times. Richard is here, Richard Bliss. Richard says, how do I find and track the Kickstarter projects? So Richard, the number one way I think now that I find out about Kickstarter projects is through the friends-backed emails that I get. So and there are certain creators that I follow too. So I follow creators and different people on Kickstarter. So if James Hudson backs a game on Kickstarter, I get an email in my inbox saying that he did so, and sometimes to check out the game and see what's going on there. Oh, Frank West is here. Awesome. Frank from who makes Isle of Cats, also City of Kings. Yeah, Frank, yeah, your game, I was just really excited to see it come together yesterday on Kickstarter, and I am elated to be a backer, an early backer. People are now catching up while I'm way behind. So people are answering my questions about Kickstarter now, which games they backed on Kickstarter. So I'll try to do some rapid fire question answering here to catch up. Ken says, which of my cats is Walter and which is Biddy? They're both ginger tabbies, but Walter has long hair, and he has very long hair, and Biddy has short hair, or medium length hair. Angie says that AEG is trying to publish fewer games a year and trying to give brick and mortar stores dibs on releases. Did I see their approach with Tiny Towns? That was a great initiative. Yeah, I think that was a really neat way to go with it. That's something that I've been trying to do after what happened with Wingspan, to give some stores the chance to buy, like when we're doing a pre-order for a game, that stores can buy some of those pre-ordered copies as well. Let's see, just looking through questions here so I can catch up. Kent says, do I think it's appropriate to play sides with Fenris content at a public convention due to spoilers? I would be careful about it. We're almost a year into it at this point, so I think we're reaching the point where people have had the chance to get it and the chance to play it. But I don't know. I would feel bad if I spoiled Rise of Fenris for someone, and I probably have. I've said things and shown things I shouldn't have. But I would just be careful about it. Maybe put up a sign saying spoilers, Rise of Fenris in progress, something like that. Charles says that he sees Crusoe Crew in the background. Did I finally get it to the table? Not yet, but I'm hoping to get it to the table tonight. Jeff says that he's watching this while reading the rulebook for Wasteland Express delivery service. Any thoughts on the game, and how do I go about learning a new game? Yeah, someone else asked about this a few minutes ago, Jeff. I usually just read the rulebook. For Wasteland Express, it's been a while since I played it, but I really enjoyed the player mats, the theme of the player mats, and switching gears and the speed and just the way that they were constructed. I remember really, really enjoying that part of it. Jay says, has the possibility of making a deck of guideposts for Charterstone been explored to be randomly picked from before a game for those that have completed the campaign? Don't worry, that isn't a spoiler for anyone who hasn't played Charterstone. Jay, I have heard the idea mentioned. It's not something that I'm actively working on designing, but I'm open to people creating guideposts, and maybe at some point, if we have enough fan-created content for that, we could print a little promo deck of guideposts for Charterstone. It's also something that will be very easy to explore in the digital version of the game. Very easy to try out a guidepost, see how people think about it. Maybe some of them can end up being printed cards as well. Kai says, have I heard about the Super Fantasy Brawl Kickstarter? The idea behind the game is to run organized plays. What do I think about that idea? Do I like this idea? I think for the right game, I think that can be the right idea, especially dueling games where it's 1v1. They seem to work well for organized play. And I think it's great that they're giving it a try. I would be hesitant if a game lives and dies on organized play. I would be really hesitant to delve into that because there's so many games that already do it. There's the behemoths like Magic that do it, and then there are smaller games that do it too. Fantasy Flight's living card games, they do it a lot with their games. So I love the spirit of it. It also can take a lot of work from the publisher's perspective to do that and to get retailers on board with it. So it's not something that I think I would pursue, but for the right game, and Fantasy Brawl might be the right game, I wish them the best in giving it a try. I would say to you, Kai, do you ever play competitively? Are there any, you, Kai, or anyone else, do you play games competitively, and do you enjoy that aspect of games if you're able to play some of these competitive gameplay at tournaments or game stores? Let's see. George says, how often am I traveling outside the U.S.? I travel very little because of what I feel are my responsibilities to my company. But I'm exploring some options to be able to open up some travel opportunities in the future. So we'll see. Might see some travel from me in the future. I did travel a little bit last year. I went to Seattle. I went to LA. Then I went to see my family, I think twice last year in Virginia. Aaron says, in terms of worker placement games, what are my thoughts on Dwellings of Eldervale? Have I play tested it? No, I haven't played it. I have listened to Luke on the Board Game Design Lab talk about it, and I've heard a couple of reviewers talk about it. I'm very intrigued by it. Right now, yesterday I only backed Isle of Cats, but I am intrigued. This is one of the games that I'm following, and I think there's a decent chance I will back it, just because I've heard great things about it. Shakid says, have I played at Tiny Towns? He's really interested in it. I have played it at Geekway, and I really enjoyed it. It was one of my top 3 games played at Geekway to the West. Gerald says, I have praised Isle of Skye a lot. Does it need the expansion for that high praise? I don't think so. In fact, I actually prefer Isle of Skye without the Journeyman expansion. I have not, though, tried the Druids expansion, so I need to try that one at some point. Charles says, speaking of the Seventh Continent, did I back the expansion, or am I still playing the game? I am, so Charles, we'll have to talk about this. Email me about Seventh Continent because it's a weird situation for me where I have not played it for a while. I still enjoy it, and I like having it because it's a nice source of inspiration for me for my open world exploration game. But I have not continued to back it because my preferred way to play the game is just to sit down and explore stuff for a while. I don't like the commitment to try to finish off a curse because it takes so long. But I just like exploring for a little while. But email me about it, Charles. I might be able to work something out with you there. But it takes further explanation that I want to do live. Brian says, have I ever realized that I've been playing a game totally wrong for multiple games? This weekend, we realized that for a while we've been missing a key rule from the Isle of El Dorado, which had been totally changing the gameplay. I'm shaking my head, or I'm nodding because I am sure that I have done that. I'm trying to think of a game that I played wrong for multiple plays. I know that I've done it. I can't think of anything right off the bat that I did that with, but I'm sure I have. I just can't think of anything offhand. Steven says, any hints on the window for Clay, codename Clay? No hints yet, just what I've put in the e-newsletter. Max says, do I have more planned for Scythe? No, Max, I've kind of made it very public that we have nothing else planned for Scythe, and that the modular board is the last planned piece of content for it. I'm not completely closing the door to stuff happening in the future because I don't know what the future holds, but my intent is that the modular board is the last thing that we will make for Scythe. Shakit says, or the Breath of the Wild game. I think you're asking, are there any updates about the Breath of the Wild game? So I am working on a game. My open world game is inspired by Breath of the Wild, but that's one that will take quite a while before it's ready to be talked about anymore. Let's see. Steven says, Architects of the West Kingdom was one that I bought right away. Almost. I played Architects of the West Kingdom, which is on my shelf now. I played it twice, and then after the second time, I found out that my friend who owned it wanted to sell it, so I bought it from him. Joseph says, is there any game I thought I wouldn't like before I played it, but it turned out that I love it? There are actually quite a few games in this category. For a while, my approach to games was, I like Euro games, like medium-weight Euro games. And then I found that there are a lot of other games that I really enjoy in different categories, and cooperative games, and some certain party games, certain deduction games, or bluffing games. So there are quite a few. Let me see on my shelf if there's one that really surprised me. Let's see. Which one that surprised me? I do my research so much about games now. I'll say Seikatsu. Seikatsu was completely off my radar, but I really do enjoy Seikatsu. It's a really light, abstract game. Plays beautifully with 3 players. Yeah, I'll put that one on there. Chad says, have I ever picked up a prototype game that was already so well designed that it actually moved in front of my other games from other designers on my work in progress chart? I think that may have happened at one point. I can't remember exactly when, but there have certainly been prototypes submitted to us that were more ready than others, and that were at a very good place. Although even with them, with any game, if I'm enamored with it from the start, my first instinct is, this doesn't need that much work. And then as I dig deeper into it, I'm like, okay, this actually does need quite a bit of refinement and balancing, and this thing isn't fun, or this thing is frustrating or confusing. So even with those games that seem like they're going to jump ahead, they often still end up taking quite a bit of time to get right. Okay, Connor's continuing the legacy question here. I make my way to the embassy and see that they are not allowing anyone in, as that was a threat called in and it's closed for safety. The guards offer no help and will not listen. There is an electronics store nearby, but I have no money. Yeah, I have no money. That's a problem. Down the road, I see some street performers busking, which gives me an idea. What will I do to earn some spare change? They will pay me for doing it, not to make me stop doing it. I am really not a performer. I don't know. Okay, Connor, I'll say this. This is an instance where I may try to use, I'm not a famous person at all, but it is possible that if I'm in a foreign country, it is somewhat slightly possible that if I go to the right place, someone might know who I am. And if someone might know who I am, they might be willing to lend me some money because they know I can give it back to them later, and they know where to find me because I'm on the internet. So I'm thinking that would be how I would get money in this situation. Joseph says, how long does a game stay in my head until I actually put it to paper? Not long at all. If I have a game idea, I am at least writing that idea down right away, because otherwise I'll forget about it. Ernani says the Copa America is also very good. Yeah, I'm following Copa too. I'm more excited about the Women's World Cup, but Copa has been fun to follow. Some interesting upsets in it so far. Max says, if not Charterstone, am I going to continue printing recharge packs and boards for Charterstone? Well, we have plenty of recharge packs. We've never been lacking for them, and we have plenty of boards too. So yeah, I don't see us running out of those components. Brian says that he already has a friend requesting a 4th campaign, and everyone loves opening a brand new game. I'm glad to hear that, Brian. I'm glad to hear that you've continued to have fun with Charterstone, you and your group. Mahir says, any chance of getting one consolidated rulebook for Scythe? Yeah, I get this question every now and then, Mahir, and my answer is always the same, and I haven't had any takers on this yet. But basically, my answer is, if a graphic designer wants to independently make a consolidated rulebook for Scythe, which is not easy. Like it requires graphic design skill and being able to pull a lot of information from a bunch of different sources together into one rulebook in a way that is easy for players to understand and parse. If a graphic designer wants to do that, I'm happy for them to do it, and I'm happy to coordinate the printing on demand process for it. But it's just not, I don't think it's a good use of my graphic designer's resources. I keep her very, very busy with other projects, and so I just can't, it doesn't feel right for me to give that to her. It doesn't feel like a good use of our resources either. So if there's a graphic designer out there who is passionate about it and wants to do that, I can even cut them into the royalties for the print-on-demand sales. It's not something that I'm seeking to make money off of. I would try to offer the lowest price possible so that people could pay as little as possible. But the graphic designer can get cut into the royalties for sales on the print-on-demand version of the rulebook. But it's not something that I'm actively going to spend my time on or my graphic designer's time on. Let's see if I have any other random topics before I get back to questions. What else have I played? I'm looking at my little sticky note here. I have gotten a few games recently. I put a few of them on Instagram today, seeing what people thought I should play. I'll see if I can show you my phone here if you can see it. Okay. I don't know if you can see that. So these are the games. So these are games that I want and need to learn to play, and I'm trying to decide which order to play them in. I know Kai is watching here. Kai probably wants me to play Vegin. There's Growl on there. There's Plane Crafters, Rabbit Island, and Campaign Trail. Rabbit Island is the newest addition to that list. It just came yesterday. So I need to figure out which of those to play first. I'll go through. I posted on Instagram yesterday. If someone wants to post to my Instagram link there, you can kind of vote on it there on which one you think I should play first, which one you're the most curious about hearing me talk about, or just that you're curious about in general. But I'm open to hearing your thoughts here too. My video this past week, my Sunday sit down, was about low interaction games, or games that are often called multiplayer solitaire, even though there are very few games I found that are truly multiplayer solitaire, that have no decisions that you make during the game that impact other players. Very few of them. Most of them are just low interaction games. And I think that's, oh yeah. I don't know if this is interesting, but my IKEA desk continues to not work. I have a sit-stand IKEA desk. That's why I've been sitting down for the last month, because my desk won't stand up anymore. And so I am trying to get to the bottom of it to finally replace the undercarriage so it can work again. I'm tired of sitting. I want to stand up again. And having way more problems than I thought with that. It's been really troubling to get through, but hopefully we'll figure it out pretty soon so I can start standing up again. Joseph says, any country that I would like to visit? Yeah, I'd like to visit Italy, New Zealand. What's the other one on my list? Italy and New Zealand are up there. Those are probably the top two. Yeah, I'll have to look at my master list here. Italy, New Zealand. Yeah, those are the main two. The main two right now. Blake says that some of his friends think Wingspan is too light. Interesting. They must be heavier gamers. I consider Wingspan a medium weight game. He's wondering if the upcoming expansion will add more depth to the game. I think any expansion is there to add depth and more decisions and different decisions. I don't know. I don't think it doesn't make the game any more complex. So if you're looking for more complexity, I don't know if you and your friends will find that, but you will find more decisions to make and more options, more mechanisms added into the game. Okay, Chad says he used to play X-Wing and Star Wars Destiny, and the 1-versus-1 competitiveness wasn't fun for me. I found myself getting more aggravated than having fun. I moved into actual board games and found that I enjoy the whole game, even if I lose. Must be more enjoy. Oh, I thought there was a question there, but I'm just reading your comment now, Chad. Well, yeah, thank you for sharing. I can definitely see that when you play competitively, it's just a very different atmosphere, I think, than when you're just playing games for fun. Even on my game night for a while, just for fun, I thought it would be just for fun. I had a bit of a ranking system. I'm pointing to a whiteboard here that you can't see off camera here, but whenever someone won a game, they just put a notch next to their name. And whenever they lost a game, they did the same. Or maybe we just did wins. But it kind of changed the spirit of even just a friendly game night, even for just a fun little thing. There wasn't any prize or anything like that. We were just doing it for fun, but it changed the spirit of it. So eventually I just erased it and we stopped doing that. Joseph says, how do I subscribe to the e-newsletter? It's on our website. Go to our website, StoneMaierGames.com, and look at the top of the page for news. Click on news, and you'll see a subscription link there. I think that's what you're talking about, Joseph. Grant's replying to Brian, not me. Yoa says, where can we find me at Gencon? I won't be at Gencon this year. MeepleSource will be there kind of representing us. So there will be a booth with MeepleSource and Stonemaier volunteers there, but I won't be there myself. Alan won't be there. No one officially from the company will be there. Rob says, do I consider any of my games evergreen? He assumes that Scythe is there. It depends on what you define evergreen. I'd consider an evergreen game a game that you continually print and continually sell. And Scythe has proven to be that since its release about 3 years ago. Yeah, we're right at 3 years on Scythe now. That's pretty cool. Viticulture has proven to be that over the last, 5 years? 6 years. It came out in 2013, 6 years. But it didn't really hit a regular retail cycle for a little while after that. So I would say Viticulture and Scythe are there. I think Wingspan definitely is on a trajectory to be an evergreen game, but it's a little early to call it that after just like 3 months after the retail release at this point. Joseph says, how long does it take me to fully design a game from start to finish? Depends on the game. It's taken me as little as like 6 months and as long as 2 years. Fortunately, this is my full-time job, not just designing games, but there are, like with Scythe, designing Scythe was essentially a full-time job for me for a number of months. I think for maybe 10 months that it took me to design Scythe. So it's helpful for me that I can be able to commit that amount of time to a game. Allie says, when does a game collection become too big? I think that's pretty subjective. It depends on your shelf space. If you feel like you are more of a collector or more of a gamer or a mix of the two. For me, I have basically one shelf, as you can see. You can see part of the Calyx shelf back there. It's a 4x4 Calyx shelf. And I like to keep my collection slim and keep it to that shelf. So if I don't play a game for a year, or if I don't see myself playing a game anymore, I'd rather give it to someone who is excited to play it. And so I do. So that's how I limit myself. And also I have a lot of friends who collect games and play games too. So there's a lot of variety in my group as to the games that I have access to. Roberto says, now that the modular board is available, he has a question. It's not quite out yet. The retail release isn't for another month. In fact, exactly 1 month from today. Using the regular normal board, but changing only the starting base factions, will it unbalance the game? That's interesting, Roberto. I hadn't thought about using just the home base tiles for Scythe on the original board. I would say it will be no less imbalanced than than the modular board is with the randomization of those tiles and the rest of the tiles on the modular board. So that's actually a pretty cool idea. Yeah, if you want to try that, you can certainly use the home-based tiles on the original board and mix them up and see how it goes. That's pretty cool. I guess the one difference is that on the modular board, there are 8 home-based slots, and on the original board, there are only 7 home-based slots, but it's not that big of a difference. Joseph says, I wanted to find out, do I think it's possible to design a game where the players can always have their turn going while not getting into other players' way, or instead you can send aid now and then, i.e. a true solo multiplayer game? Can always have their turn going. So I mean, the game that I mentioned on my video that is truly multiplayer solitaire is On Tour. There are no decisions you make during On Tour that impact any other players at all. But On Tour does have structure to it. You're not just making decisions during the game. You're rolling the dice. Everyone writes down 2 numbers, and then the next player rolls the dice, and you rinse and repeat. So that's different than I think that's a little different than what you're saying. That the players can always have their turn going. So they always are doing things even while other players aren't acting, or are acting. Without, I don't know. I think that would be difficult. I think that would be difficult to do. But maybe look at some of these real-time trading games that I'm talking about, because they do have an aspect of that. Although they're not multiplayer solitaire at all, they're quite the opposite of it. They're fully interactive. So I wouldn't say that. So I don't know. I look at On Tour. Start with On Tour and work from there. Derek says that he went to New Zealand for his brother's wedding. It's beautiful and lots of stuff to see and do. Derek, what was your favorite thing that you did in New Zealand? What would you recommend to someone if they could only do one thing in New Zealand? What would they do? And if they could only eat one thing in New Zealand? I love traveling for food. So there's a good local dish, something that's unique to New Zealand that I should try. Let me know. Grant says he got the modular boards from Aetherworks. Good. Thank you for your patience so much for waiting for that. It took way longer than I thought for the Australia shipments to go through. Oh, Grant's just saying that he got it. I'm glad you got it. That's good. Chad says, if I had a theme song that played every time I entered a room, what would it be? His would be the Imperial March. I love this question. It's something that actually came up kind of the other day. We were talking about kind of having an angelic music happen whenever you open your refrigerator. I would love for there to be a sound when I open the fridge, some awesome, exciting sound. I don't know if I have a theme song in mind. It's got to be something with that has a dramatic entrance, and it doesn't have to play for long for you to get that entrance. Carmina Burana. I always forget the name of this song. Let's see if I can find it. There is a song that has an epic feel to it. iTunes currently is not cooperating with me. Let's see if I can get okay. I'll get the words right here. Carmina Burana, O Fortuna. That's one that I think could be pretty cool as an entrance song. Baseball players in the U.S. usually have an entrance song as well. They usually pick not classical songs, but newer songs. So I'm sure at different times there'll be newer songs that would be fun to enter into rooms from. And why don't we do that? Why isn't that a thing yet? Why isn't there? Maybe someday when we all have microchips embedded in us, that can trigger something when we walk into a room where it does make some cool sound or play some cool music that's tied to our microchip. That would be cool. Rick says, do we know if Clay is officially the Cub game? Don't know what the Cub game is, but no, I have not. I don't speak about what codename games are until we actually announce those games. So no one officially knows what that game is. Ali says, do I have rules to cull my collection or rules on buying games? Yeah, my rule for culling the collection is if I've had a game, if I haven't played a game for a year or I don't see myself playing it again. My rules on buying games, I wouldn't say I really have rules. I just, I am always acutely aware of the games in my collection that I want to actively play and that I need to, or I want to learn and play. And that carries over when I see a new game being talked about or on Kickstarter, that kind of plays into it. Like, how am I going to fit this in when I have these other games that I want to play? Okay, Connor, let's do one more legacy question for today. I walk past the buskers and happen upon a game store. I recognize some covers, but the names are all in a script, which makes me think I'm in Southeast Asia. Okay, so I don't even know where I am right now. That makes things difficult. Unfortunately, the game store does not appear to be doing well, as they don't carry any Stonemaier products. Luckily, the worker is a young man who approaches me and asks in broken English if I need help. How do I respond? This is where I think I would try to see if this person kind of knows who I am and try to leverage that to have them help me, not in a way that takes advantage of them in any way, but can maybe help me get out of this tough situation. Kai says, any news about his metal pin? No, Kai. Yes, Kai, let me know. Go back and look at that post and see how many people responded to it to say they want a metal pin for Scythe. I don't know if that's something that I'm going to do, but I'm open to someone else doing it if they're excited about doing it. Maybe Meeple. Actually, no, MeepleSource does have a pin, but I think last year they did it for Scythe. This year they're doing it for Wingspan. Charles recommends Hokey Pokey ice cream in New Zealand. Mahir says Queenstown in New Zealand and Milford South from there will be the best experience, and Queenstown has tons of activities itself. Cool. Thank you for the recommendation. If I end up going to New Zealand, I'll do a full post asking for recommendations there for sure, but this is a good start. Edge says, most board gamers are lucky to have constant game groups, while I only have my wife to play most of the time. What do I suggest we try amongst the recent games I've played with few people? Most of my games I play with a lot of people. But I do have favorite two-player games. If you want a two-player game recommendation, or games that only play with two players, some of my favorites are Patchwork. You can see them up there. Patchwork, Seven Wonders Duel, Cosmic Run, Jolly and Roger, Hanami Koji, Keyforge, Stratego. I've had fun with Legacy of Dragonholt two-player, and Dice Throne up there is two-player as well. I think those are all very great two-player games. Obviously, Stonemaier games, all of our games play down to two players as well, and I think I like how they play with two players, so I'd recommend them as well. Ernani says he played CO2 for the first time this weekend, and he loved the semi-cooperative aspect of it. Have I played it? I haven't played CO2, no. Have I played any other semi-cooperative mechanisms that I love in games? I talked about some of these kind of in a video I did about positive player interactions, where you do things in games that benefit other players, but also benefit you and feel good for you to do. Any other semi-cooperative games? We have a few. I mean, we had our Between Two Castles, Between Two Cities line of games are essentially semi-cooperative games. They're partnership games, but they involve semi-cooperation. Let me look at my collection to see if I have any other games that are semi-cooperative. Downforce is one. I think Downforce has both positive and negative player interaction, but I like how Downforce you are throughout the game, you are moving other cars forward even as you move your own car forward as well. I'll have to think about the other whole genre of semi-cooperative games are those that are cooperative games with trader elements. So there are a few of those in that genre that I enjoy as well. Connor says, speaking of epic, have I seen the movie The Fall? It's a few years old now, but it's fantastic. I highly recommend it. I'll make a note of that, Connor. No, I haven't even actually heard of The Fall, so I'll look into that. Jacob says, do I do these live streams every Wednesday at the same time? Yes. Yeah, Jacob, I do them every Wednesday at 10 a.m. I don't know why your phone has stopped notifying you. Maybe it's check your notification level for the Stonemaier Games webpage or Facebook page. But yeah, 10 a.m. Central Time every Wednesday. Next week will be my e-newsletter version of our weekly chat. Let's see. I think I've covered all my topics for today. Ernani says, do I feel pressure to play the games that I haven't played for the past 11 months just so I don't have to get rid of them? Yeah, sometimes. Yes, I do look at the games on my shelf of opportunity, and I say, this game, I haven't played it for a while. And every now and then I just don't play a game and I realize that I'm just not interested in playing it. There's nothing against the game, but it's just ends up being a lack of interest. But I usually do try to, if I have bought a game, I usually do try it at least once. Some people are talking about certain sensors that someone mentioned one. Charles mentioned one that pairs with a shirt. Anthony is mentioning one that has sensors that pair with Google Home to play music when you get home. They can also unlock your door, turn on the lights, and change your thermostat. That is really cool. So maybe the future is here. Samsung already does this. They have arrival sensors. Do they know it's you? Like, do they know specifically Jamie has arrived here, or someone else has arrived here? Derek says he went go-karting in Queenstown, New Zealand. That sounds pretty intense. Charles says, Legacy of Dragonholt plays well two-player. Yeah, I've almost only played Legacy of Dragonholt two-player, and I've really enjoyed it. I've also found that it's a really good car game, like if you want to do things in a car, because it doesn't require a board or a table really at all. You just have the big storybook. Works really well as a game that you can play in the car with people. No, I haven't quite reached the end, but my scrolling isn't working. Yeah, I think I got reached the end of the comments here. Thank you all for your questions today. These were some great questions. It's fun to hear, and fun to hear your answers too about a few of the things that I asked about. I'm gonna step back from the camera and enjoy my cold brew chocolate here, and I hope you have a wonderful Wednesday. I'll see you next week for my e-newsletter edition of the weekly livecast. Take care. See ya.